When Disney opened Trader Sam's Enchanted Tiki Bar in 2011, it was an unexpected move for the company. It came attached to a years-long refurbishment to the Disneyland Hotel that centered on clean, mid-century design. Trader Sam's was this highly themed maximalist tiki bar that stood out like a sore thumb right in the middle of the hotel's courtyard. By the time of Trader Sam's opening, tiki bars had been virtually forgotten by the masses, and yet the bar quickly became a hit and sparked a revival in interest in tiki bars and tiki culture as a whole. Disney recaptured the lightning in a bottle that made tiki escapism a defining part of post-Prohibition America, and managed to create that magic on both coasts. So the next logical step after such a huge win was to take this highly themed, interactive, immersive bar concept and integrate it into the parks themselves. While that sounds simple on paper, Disney has struggled to take this concept and scale up the spark that makes Trader Sam's a fan favorite still 15 years later. And I want to talk about why. To understand the concept that Disney revived with Trader Sam's, I think it's important to look all the way back to the beginning of tiki culture. This starts with two Californian bars in the early 1930s. Prohibition had just ended, but the Great Depression was still taking its toll on the average American. Don the Beachcomber and Trader Vic would create these escapist paradises referred to as tiki bars that were inspired by an amalgamation of their experiences traveling throughout the Central and South Pacific, creating this fictional culture that didn't really exist but still pulled from the feelings and art of those travels. These bars provided a reprieve for people who wanted to forget the stress and tribulations of the 1930s life and feel like they were somewhere else entirely. Tiki bars thrived off this idea of escapism. In a lot of ways, they work like casinos, where once you're inside, you don't really have a frame of reference for the outside world. No windows, no clocks, just an overwhelming amount of theming. At a time where Americans weren't traveling internationally for financial and geopolitical reasons, tiki bars scratched that itch. As the economy recovered and the average American's spending power went through the roof, tiki bars benefited and were cornerstones of culture. That was until the 1970s came along. By then, society had started shifting away from these highly themed over-the-top lounges, and people were looking for new counterculture concepts or more refined spaces to gather. It also didn't help that in the boom of tiki bars, many cheapened the experience that the originals aimed for. Don the Beachcomber and Trader Vic intentionally kept their recipes as secretive as possible, and while this benefited them, it meant that most people's local tiki bar wasn't making the same zombie or Mai Tai that made the concept popular in the first place. All of this, combined with both men passing in the 1980s, left tiki bars feeling like a relic of a former generation, and a majority would close in the years to come. While they weren't extinct, by 2010, tiki culture was something that faded into the shadows and wasn't something you just stumble upon in your everyday life. In the late 2000s, Disney began work on a major renovation to the Disneyland Hotel, bringing the piecemealed hotel together into a more cohesive theme. Each of the separate towers were lightly themed to Frontierland, Fantasyland, and Adventureland. The rooms and grounds took these concepts and applied them to mid-century modern design principles to create a classy, sleek hotel that would pair nicely with the more recent Grand Californian. The Grand Californian features a signature cocktail bar called the Hearthstone Lounge that serves elevated drinks, which made it a standout for many resort guests. Disney wanted to bring this concept to the renovated Disneyland Hotel, and so they planned to build a Jungle Cruise-inspired lounge in the center courtyard of it. Not much else was known publicly at the time as renovations and construction began. But behind the scenes, early concepts were being drawn up, and the mid-century modern vibes of the rest of the renovation were taken into the lounge's concept. These early concepts were classy, modern, sleek, but that didn't feel right. An Imagineer, Brandon Calea, saw these plans and felt like something was off with them. Saying the lounge was going to be inspired by the Jungle Cruise and delivering a clean, polished design just felt wrong. The design styles didn't match between the ride and the bar. Brandon, now affectionately referred to as Trader Brandon, went back and worked on some designs that better captured the Jungle Cruise style and pulled inspiration from some of the remaining tiki bars in Southern California to create what we now know as Trader Sam's Enchanted Tiki Bar. When the bar opened to guests in May of 2011, it wasn't an immediate hit. The concept itself wasn't drawing guests in droves, but the people who did stop in were treated to a masterclass in Imagineering. The inside of the bar was a maximalist overload that contrasted the rest of the hotel dramatically. Every square inch of the space was covered in layers and layers of props, each telling their own story and adding to the atmosphere of the space as a whole. It took the original tiki bar principle by being an escape removed from the outside world, with the only windows being projections of a tropical scene. Once guests sat down, the experience continued to exceed any expectations, with a menu of drinks that was both fun and diverse, but also had some tiki staples made far more traditionally than you would expect for a Disney bar. Then, when you ordered, the real wow of the bar unfolded, with many of the drinks on the menu triggering interactive pieces around the bar that made the experience feel alive and unique. Drinks like the shipwreck on the rocks causing the ship behind the bar to sink, the Krakatawa causing the volcano in the window to erupt, or the zombie sinking the bar stools towards the floor. The experience of Trader Sam's was far beyond that of a standard Disney bar and brought the experience of things like the Adventurers Club and Pleasure Island into a far smaller and more digestible experience. Word of mouth spread quickly, and the bar went from a cult favorite to the hottest place on Disney property with wait times to match. Even things like the collectible mugs became coveted, and people would go just for them. The bar was such a success that it became clear to executives that they needed to bring it to the East Coast. Before we get to Trader Sam's on the East Coast, I want to thank this video sponsor, HelloFresh. HelloFresh delivers incredible pre-portioned meal kits right to your door, and I've been traveling like crazy recently, so it's been a lifesaver to have dinners planned out and ready to make. Plus, HelloFresh keeps making it easier with their new low-lift dinners that are there for those days when you don't want to spend too much time in the kitchen, but still want a great dinner. They also make it really easy to swap proteins in meals, or even double the portion size so you can customize your meal kit to be exactly what you like and need. Swapping proteins is actually super helpful for me because I'm not really a seafood person, but I know I'd love the dish with chicken instead. They've really made it easy to still explore a ton of new flavors while making sure you'll love the meals. So if you want to try HelloFresh for yourself, click the link in my description or scan the QR code on the screen. Plus, they're offering a free Caraway food storage set worth $155 with your third box. But this offer is only available for a limited time, so be sure to check it out. Thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to Trader Sam's in Orlando. When it came to bringing Trader Sam's to Orlando, it was obvious where the bar should go. Downtown Disney. It kind of made sense. Downtown Disney was going through a major renovation just like the Disneyland Hotel had been. The renovation would rename the district to Disney Springs and expand its footprint into a former parking lot. The area that used to be home to Pleasure Island was being redesigned into the landing with more traditional restaurants and shops instead of nightclubs. Trader Sam's would be a perfect replacement for the nightclub atmosphere that Pleasure Island used to provide. While the team behind Trader Sam's was opposed to the scaled-up location at Disney Springs, construction started, including installing a prop Jungle Cruise boat seating area on the outside of the building. But then in a meeting, John Lasseter, of all people, pushed back on the bar being located at Disney Springs and not at the Polynesian resort that shared a lot of the same tiki influences that inspired Trader Sam's, and was coincidentally also undergoing a renovation to expand their main lobby. Executives listened and pivoted quickly and carved out space in this expansion for an intimate Trader Sam's bar. Disney also took advantage of this expansion to build an outside terrace and walk-up bar that could serve the same menu as the bar, but without the same theming to increase capacity and revenue without cheapening the experience of the bar itself. When it opened to guests in 2015, Trader Sam's Grog Grotto wasn't a direct clone of the Disneyland version. It had its own distinct timeline set further into the future than the original, and pulled more inspiration from the Tiki Room in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea than the Jungle Cruise. While some effects were carried over, some were unique to each location, such as the Polynesian Pearl at Grog Grotto, where each pearl mug is taken out of a giant clamshell on the bar with a rare chance of a black pearl. While it took Disneyland's version time to find its audience and become a success, that wasn't the same case in Orlando. Grog Grotto instantly became one of the most popular places at the entire resort, and rave reviews flooded blogs, social media, and locals. It became a sport to get on the waitlist and experience the bar, and it would regularly fill up for the day less than an hour after opening. The success of both iterations of Trader Sam's helped spark a revival in tiki culture in America as a whole. It introduced the concept in a very digestible way that captured people's interest and made them seek out other places to explore. We're still seeing this renewed interest in these highly themed, interactive, intimate bars that pulled directly from the original Tiki Bar playbook to this day, and it shows no signs of slowing down. But back to the mid-2010s at Disney, what happened to the space at Disney Springs that was meant for Trader Sam's? Well, Disney was going to try and still bring a large themed lounge to the space as a part of Disney Springs, and at the same time keep the boat seating area already attached to the building. This led to them pivoting to Indiana Jones's pilot, Jock Lindsay, for an aeronautic-inspired bar. The bar would open later in 2015 in the shadows of Grog Grotto, but it wasn't trying to compete. While it was a themed bar, the theme wasn't as intricately done, and there wasn't any attempt at the interactivity that defined Trader Sam's. Another project that no doubt took some inspiration from Trader Sam's was the renovation of the boardwalk that replaced Seashore Suites with Abracadabar in 2016. This magician-themed bar sits between two sit-down restaurants on the boardwalk and had a lot of people excited during its announcement and construction. However, the bar ended up just being heavily themed to magicians and didn't feature the interactivity and over-the-top feel that many expected. The most the bar had to offer beyond the decor was a cleverly designed coaster, a color-changing margarita, and the magicians in the posters disappearing on the 13th minute mark of every hour. Both of these bars weren't trying to match Trader Sam's, but many fans wished they did try to recreate that magic with a new theme. And the next logical step was taking everything Disney had learned and bringing it into the parks themselves.
Well, we're bringing Star Wars to life in a big way, and I mean really big. We're creating a jaw-dropping new world that represents our largest single-themed land expansion ever. Every store and restaurant will be operated by local inhabitants, making each experience deeply immersive.
When Disney announced immersive Star Wars lands for both coasts, part of the concept art shared included a cantina, and while not called out specifically, it seemed like a no-brainer to Star Wars fan that any new land was going to include one. Cantinas date back all the way to the first movie ever released, and have since made appearances across the ever-growing Star Wars canon. There were questions, however, of whether or not the cantina would serve alcohol. At the Hollywood Studios location, this wasn't going to be a problem at all, as that park has served alcohol since its opening day. But Disneyland had been considered a dry park for its entire history. While this rule dated back to Walt himself and had already been stretched with Club 33 and alcohol being served next door at California Adventure, Disneyland was still largely seen as the bastion of Walt's vision for his parks, which didn't include alcohol. But by the 2010s, there was a sense that the Disney Corporation was ready to change this, but they needed an excuse. Disneyland Paris had been serving alcohol to guests since 1993, and domestically, the Magic Kingdom began serving alcohol exclusively at select table service restaurants since 2012. Just like Magic Kingdom used the opening of New Fantasyland and the Be Our Guest restaurant as a way to divert public blowback for introducing alcohol to the Castle Park, Disney planned to use Oga's Cantina as a way to minimize blowback to breaking the long-standing Walt rule in his park. Just a year before Galaxy's Edge was set to open, Disney gave more details on the bar without mentioning alcohol by name. The cantina was designed as a watering hole, and they tried to make it clear that this was a stop for libations for both adults and kids, but not a place for a full meal. By the time Galaxy's Edge opened, many expected to walk into the cantina to find a Star Wars take on the Trader Sam's formula with the same level of interaction and immersion. But Disney felt they had to make changes to that formula to make the concept work in the parks themselves, and those changes were obvious. For starters, the space is far larger with a far more expansive bar area. Seating was incredibly limited to just scattered booths on the outskirts to encourage people not to linger too long. The drink menu was large, with a much larger variety of non-alcoholic options to appeal to all ages, but all the cocktails were pre-batched, which meant you couldn't get a standard drink or make any modifications to what was being offered. Food-wise, the menu was tiny, with only 2 small snack options that couldn't be considered a meal in any way. And all guests would be limited to just a few beverages and a very strict time limit. But the biggest change from Trader Sam's was the way that Oga's treated its interactions. Gone were the drink-triggered effects. Instead, an animatronic DJ named Rex, who used to be the pilot for the original iteration of Star Tours, would play some classic Star Wars music in addition to original music created for the cantina itself. From time to time, various scenes could play out, like Rex glitching out and reciting his old Star Tours lines, the bar's hyperdrive failing and needing to be fixed by the bartenders to keep the cantina working, or occasionally a visit from walk-around stormtroopers. Besides those, though, the bar relied heavily on its bartenders to essentially play characters and create the bar atmosphere that kept people coming back. These changes were controversial, and the perception of the bar in Disney circles and the general public was hit or miss. While some found the bar lively and a unique way to enjoy a drink inside of the parks, many people found that the changes were hostile to the guest experience and like a missed opportunity as a whole. The bar felt transactional between the batch drinks, the time limit, the limited food options, and the lack of seating. People wanted a place to take their time and escape the hustle of the parks outside, but instead found a bar designed to recreate that hustle. On top of that, the theming and interactivity fell flat. While the bar itself is designed well, so many of the walls fall flat without the layers of theming to get lost in, not to mention the repetitive nature of the canned dialogue in the music loop. It was clear that Disney missed the mark with Oga's Cantina, and they would need to go back to the drawing board the next time they wanted to build a theme bar inside of their parks.
We're developing a brand new tavern that some of the regulars might call a watering hole, where pirates of all ages gather to tell their tales. And I hear there's a certain macaw that we haven't seen in a while. Anybody remember the Barker Bird? There's the Barker Bird Pirates? Yes. Well, he's taken up residence here in a new spot, and you know he loves to come in and spin a yarn or two with guests. So it's going to be great seeing him again. Look, these designs are really early in the process, but we're really looking forward to where this is headed. And as soon as we know more, we'll run up our flag and share it with you.
The next attempt at a themed bar inside the parks wouldn't be that far away, with the announcement of a pirate-themed tavern coming to the Magic Kingdom at Destination D23 in 2023. While not explicitly stated, it was assumed that this bar would follow in Oga's footsteps and act as a more traditional bar instead of the full-service restaurants that already brought alcohol to the Magic Kingdom. This had people wondering if they were going to be able to solve some of the shortcomings that had become apparent in the years since Oga's opened. When the bar opened 2 years later, reviews were mixed, but there were some clear improvements made. A majority of the bar had seats, with limited standing room at the bar and one alcove. Funnily enough, while I was editing this video, Disney actually went back and added seats to the bar at Beacon Barrel, just showing that they're still making modifications and trying to get this to work. Then, starting day one, the food menu, while still small, had more filling options that could substitute a meal. The corn cakes are some of the best food I think you can get at the Magic Kingdom right now, especially for the price. Interestingly, just before Beacon Barrel opened, Oga's refreshed their food offerings with similarly filling options. Then, Beacon Barrel also has the layers of theming and story built into the decorations that Trader Sam's does. Every time I visit, I notice something new. But the biggest thing that improved, at least in my opinion, is that the bar-wide scenes are a lot more robust than Oga's. The parrot Rummy regularly peeks out from the back of the bar to tell a joke, lead a song, or react to mermaids or a squall, or accidentally drain the bar of its magical rum bottle. There are enough scenes that you need to visit regularly to know each and every one, which the average guest just isn't. Rummy also isn't always involved with the effects, such as 2 ships taken from a pirate's adventure battling inside of bottles, or the secrets of a treasure map appearing on a wall. But even with all this improvement, the bar still hasn't been a hit with the general public the way that Disney likely hoped. The bar still has a strict 45-minute time limit that makes the entire experience feel rushed and transactional instead of the reprieve that guests want. The cocktails are still pre-batched, so you lose the personal touch that a full bar provides. It also leads to these awkward moments where a bartender has to explain that they don't serve a rum and coke at this pirate-themed bar run by a parrot named Rummy. Another major point of contention is still the shared seating. While people appreciate that you're able to sit down, you're almost always sharing a table with strangers. This worked for Trader Sam's because the guests visiting were the type to go out of their way to visit this bar because they wanted the experience. There's a barrier for entry that turns away people who don't want to potentially strike up conversation with strangers. But when it's the main way to get alcohol in the busiest theme park on Earth, you're not just getting the people who want the experience, you're getting a much wider audience of theme park guests, with many not interested in sharing their experiences with people outside their family. Adding to this, there are a lot of awkward and just straight up bad seats because of how they maximize the space. Seats face blank walls, or tucked away in a corner with no line of sight to the bar, and are awkwardly close to each other. But what really makes the experience still not live up to Trader Sam's is the lack of true involvement and interactivity in the experience as a whole. At Trader Sam's, if I don't get a specific drink, I might not see a neat scene. There's this sense of community that builds. I always love seeing how excited everyone at the bar gets when a black pearl comes out of the clamshell, even if it's not their drink. At Beacon Barrel though, everyone could walk in and order a Diet Coke and nothing changes. The experience isn't reliant on the customers, which makes the value proposition much harder. It's easier to justify a $20 cocktail when it comes with entertainment I would only get if I spent that money. It's a lot harder to justify that when I'd get the same experience with or without spending any money. And at the end of the day, it's Disney's job to make that value proposition make sense to their guests. Disney has now made 2 attempts to recreate the Trader Sam's experience within their parks, and while the results aren't necessarily bad and have their own unique strengths, they haven't resonated with guests the same way. But Disney has more than just the theme parks, and maybe the most promising developments in this space have happened on the Disney Cruise Line. The cruise line bars have been progressively getting more and more thematic and immersive, but this has gone into overdrive with the recent Wish-class ships. The Wish itself entered service in 2022 with Star Wars Hyperspace Lounge on board. Guests who have experienced both Hyperspace Lounge and Oga's have been far more positive on Hyperspace with its better setting, effects, and seating. But overall, many still felt disappointed by the sterile feeling experience. Things really got interesting when the Disney Treasure took its maiden voyage in 2024 with Hyperspace Lounge replaced with the Haunted Mansion Parlor. This parlor followed the same formula as Trader Sam's by taking a beloved ride and building a bar around that universe. The Haunted Mansion was a perfect choice with how dedicated and passionate of a fan base that ride garners. Fans obsess over every little detail on the ride, and Disney took that into account, flooding the parlor with layers and layers of detail and Easter eggs that let guests continue that behavior outside of the ride. The bar, in a sense, acts in the same way that the ride itself does. The show scenes play out in brief glimpses, just like the beginning of the ride, where you may catch glimpses of the supernatural, but it's not an onslaught of ghosts in your face. The scenes appear so briefly just to catch you off guard and keep you on the lookout, and it builds the tension the longer you sit and wonder what could possibly happen next. There's also guest participation built into some of the scenes that make up for the loss of drink-triggered effects. The parlor truly captured the spirit of not only the ride itself and its long storied history, but it also captured the spirit of Trader Sam's in a new way and has been a huge success on both the Treasure and the Destiny after it. Which has people wondering, could this be coming to the Magic Kingdom as part of the Villain's Lane project and take another stab at a themed bar in the park? It would be one way to integrate alcohol into those plans without breaking the rule of no characters attached to alcohol. Now it's just a matter of, does this concept scale to the parks, or is there a way to build multiple spaces next to each other and utilize a space like the Haunted Mansion pre-show holding area to direct guests in different ways? But an even more out there idea that I want to talk about is, do they even need to serve alcohol to make spaces like this? In a lot of ways, drinking is social in nature. People's choice in drinks is often a reflection of their personality that they want to share subtly with the people around them. This idea doesn't just apply to alcoholic drinks though. Think about places like Dutch Bros, Swig, and Dunkin'. They offer an almost impossible amount of customization on their drinks, and people eat it up. But when you go to the Disney parks, your options for a customizable drink are Starbucks, Joffrey's, and bars. Outside of Disney, dirty sodas and flavored soft drinks have been having a moment this year, with them finding their way onto menus at fast food places across the country. They allow people to feel that personalization in their drink in a non-alcoholic way, and it works. I think Disney has a massive opportunity to take advantage of this in their parks. A lot of guests visiting Disney either don't drink or are not old enough to drink. So the idea of an old-fashioned soda bar on Main Street would not only fit in perfectly thematically, I also think it would make a killing on high-margin products like soda. This concept could also come to Gaston's Tavern to try and rejuvenate that location, which never quite caught on the way that Disney had hoped. This would also help alleviate the stress that both Starbucks and Joffrey's have on them at the Magic Kingdom specifically, because there's no other obvious place to get coffee, and customization is out of the question anywhere else. It's crazy to me to think that the Magic Kingdom has the least coffee shops at the resort when it's the busiest theme park on Earth. So there's obviously a lot of potential next steps for Disney to take with thematic drinks at their parks. But one thing is for sure, there will be next steps. Disney revitalized tiki bars as a whole with Trader Sam's. The concept weaved a distinctly un-Disney-like environment into a story that guests had already fallen in love with, and the result has become beloved by nearly everyone who's experienced it. However, in the years since, Disney has tried to make this formula work inside of their theme parks to at best moderate success. While some people might think the lack of general public love for these attempts means the end for Disney trying, these attempts gave them an excuse to bring alcohol revenue to parks that previously didn't have any of that income stream. There's no way to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and the profits these bars likely already bring in make their continued expansion inevitable in my opinion. But it doesn't mean they can't keep trying to find the magic they found with Trader Sam's. Trader Sam's was a perfect storm of both incredible design and perfect timing. Trader Brandon and his team created a bar where every experience felt personal every time, even at a destination as popular as the Disneyland Resort. This was through the combination of the intimate space, the layers and layers of theming, the interactive elements and collectibles, but most importantly, the cast members who were given the material and ability to make the experience their own for each guest. Great bars let their bartenders act as the glue that brings strangers together, and Trader Sam's had built-in icebreakers to make that process even easier. On the financial side of things too, Trader Sam's got so much right, streamlining where they needed to, but not in a way that hurt guest experience. For me, the drink interactions are a clear example of this. Trader Sam's offers a full bar, but if every drink needed to be made from scratch, things could get hectic with the crowds it draws in. But the desire to order a drink that includes a special effect or a souvenir mug naturally pushes guests towards drinks that can have elements batched to speed things up. Instead of not offering a full bar, there's naturally a way that encourages guests to stay on the menu. All of this came at a time too when social media was just beginning to sink its teeth into everyday life, and sharing your experiences and personality became commonplace. Not only could you share the cool experience of the bar itself in bite-sized form, you could also showcase the effects your drink specifically triggered and the cast member jokes that came along with it. Trader Sam's is an incredibly shareable experience, and while that may have not been the intention during development, it benefited the bar greatly in its early years. Disney's challenge is to find a way to take something that thrives off its intimacy and scale it up to the biggest theme park in the world. I think it says how difficult executing this can be that even a park as immersive as Epic Universe hasn't attempted this concept. And that's even with Trader Brandon now working for Universal and serving as the art director for Dark Universe. Burning Blade Tavern, while definitely sharing some design principles with Trader Sam's, doesn't attempt to be interactive in any way. Making something work at this scale is incredibly difficult, and while Oga's and Beacon Barrel have their pros and cons, I think they're a strong learning experience for the Imagineers. There are aspects of the original formula that may have seemed inconsequential to cut in the name of capacity, but then proved to be key elements in the experience. I don't envy the teams having to create an escapist reprieve that can just constantly churn through guests, but I do have faith that there is a solution to be found, and I truly think the next immersive bar at a Disney park could be up to the standard that Trader Sam's set. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring it. It means a ton to have a returning sponsor, and that just wouldn't happen without your support of my videos, so thank you so much. I also want to thank the Search For Tiki for their guide to Trader Sam's, which had an interview with Trader Brandon, which was hugely helpful in the research for this video. So I'm going to link that below as well. And yeah, I'm kind of shocked at how far I fell down this rabbit hole. But I think it's a neat story, and it says a lot about the modern Disney company. So if you liked it, give it a like and hit subscribe. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.